Welcome to the Art of Likability, ranked one of the top podcasts in the world. In this podcast, you'll discover how to leverage likability to build stronger relationships, lead more efficiently, close more sales, and keep customers happy while increasing success in your professional and personal life. Let's jump in with your host, Arel Moody.
What's going on, Likability family? Arel Moody here, your host of the Art of Likability podcast, where we teach you the strategies that you need to take your life to the next level by increasing the relationships you have with yourself to the best level possible and the relationship you have with others. And today we have an incredible, super exciting interview. I'm going to fanboy just a little bit. We got the man, the myth, the legend in the house, my favorite baseball player growing up. And this isn't a joke. There's going to be an image in our show notes. And I want you to look at it. When I was about 7 years old and they asked me who my favorite baseball player was, and I said who our guest is today. So I want you to see the picture because I am super excited. We have Darryl Strawberry in the house. He is an ordained minister, speaker, author, and former MLB All-Star. He's dedicated to shedding light on the addiction epidemic that faces our country today in order to help others avoid the same pitfalls he once fell victim to. Now, if you don't know anything about his career, during his career, he helped the New York Mets to a World Series championship and the New York Yankees to 3 World Series championships. He was voted an All-Star 8 years in a row. He was also suspended 3 times by the MLB for substance abuse. Now, Darryl's taking his message to the masses with his book, Don't Give Up on Me, Shedding Light on Addiction with Darryl Strawberry and Sean Powell. So, with my fanboy feelings at its ultimate high, Darryl, welcome to our show, brother.
Thank you so much for having me, Arel. Appreciate it.
Man, absolutely. So let's just jump into the kind of the book portion of it, and then I want to go into some other questions as well. But you've already written a book that was very well received through HarperCollins, and you decided to write this book, Don't Give Up on Me. What caused you to say that this was the time I needed to get this message out?
Well, it took some time to really sit down with Sean and really talk about the fact of what happens to people. With the epidemic that's happening across America today, with people just losing their life and having 2 treatment centers down here in Florida and seeing so many young people's lives being taken through opiates and heroin addiction, we really decided we needed to write a book, and I really needed to share the heart of what happens to one, the brokenness of someone's life. And mine was completely broken too, even though I was a great Major League Baseball player. I came from this dysfunction situation. Father's alcoholic, beats the crap out of me, said I never amount to nothing. So I was really left with scars inside before I ever put the uniform on. And Arel, if you never deal with the brokenness and the scars on the inside, it's going to play out in your life. And so many people's lives today are having that same problem play out in their lives because of what's happening on the inside. We all look good on the outside. We look great when we dress up and put clothes on and look in the mirror, but what are my insides like? And for a very long time, my insides was very toxic, very empty, very lonely. Addiction is very powerful, and it comes in all shapes. We don't really know what happens to a person. We just look at a person saying, what's wrong with them? We don't know what happens in the home with people. We could just assume that they should be fine because they're successful. That really doesn't make you well, regardless of how much money I make, how well I do. And the reason I was so good, because my pain led me to my greatness, and my greatness would eventually lead me to my destructive behavior. And that's the reality of life and what we live in with people who end up suffering with addiction, some kind of trauma, some kind of abuse, some kind of rejection. And then they pick up a drink or a drug, and it alters their mind and changes them forever. And they just keep running down the road until they are able to come to a place and get well inside. And it's a process of getting well. It's not an overnight miracle, because you just don't get an addiction overnight. It's a long period once you get in the midst of it. And for me, it was a long time. I was in the midst of my addiction in my playing days and everything, and just could never shake it. There were periods where I would stay sober, but there were periods I would fall back off and wonder why. And the reason why is because I never did any real work. And so that's what the book is about, is to be able to educate people how to deal with people with addiction problems, how to love them, but you don't have to tolerate them. it's important that we love them because we don't know their hurts and their habits and their hangups and what's happening until we actually allow them to get well and deal with that through a treatment process and some kind of psychiatrist. And the book was written not only by me, but Sean and me and Sean sat down and I told my part of the story, but there were psychiatrists and doctors who had to sit down and talk to me about my history and my childhood and what happened. And that's when they find out the depth, what's wrong with a person.
It's interesting that you bring up a few of those points, because I once heard that when you understand someone's story, you can never hate them. That, it's so easy to judge on the outside and look at things, but when we really get behind the scenes, we can see what causes the decisions that we make. And it's interesting because I've had this conversation with a lot of my high-performing friends, like my friends who've really succeeded at a very, very high level. And one of the unifying threads that I witnessed, and I'm by no means saying this is what everyone has, but I've just noticed it at a high frequency of the people that I know, that there's some pain, there's some childhood pain that they're trying to overcome through success, through greatness, that if I can just build this wealth, if I can build this company, or if I can become this athlete, it'll help stop maybe this pain that I'm feeling. So that drive from the pain becomes one's gift and curse. And, I heard you mention that you dealt with a lot of pains that you would throw a uniform over to almost symbolically cover up, and you did really well on the field. What do you think your connection to pain, trauma, and then your aspiration for greatness, how did that play out for you? Was there a connection? Can you look back and see that was part of your story or not?
Yeah, it was a great part of my story. The pain connection was what led me to my greatness, to believe in myself, because my father didn't believe in me, and he told me I never amount to nothing. And my pain led me to that, to prove him wrong, that I would be great. But I was still empty. I was still broken. And it left me crippled on the inside. It allowed me to be good from a standpoint of performing. But when I took the uniform off, went home, I used to always say, who am I? What am I? Yeah, they cheer for me because I hit home runs and do great things as a baseball player. But they really don't know me. And they really don't know that on the inside that I'm hurting. And I drank to drown myself, to escape. And I come back and do it again the next day because, I was good at it. That's the pain part. And the greatness part of it was the ability to perform at such a high level and not think. That's the incredible part of people that go on to be successful. They don't think, they just do it. I mean, greatness becomes because you do it and you work at it to be the best. And you tell yourself, people ask me, well, why were you so good as a baseball player and when you got into the box and you could do things so well? The thing about it is I was great from the on deck circle. My mind was already set up how good I was from the on deck circle because I could win games from the on deck circle. I played the game out before I got into the box, so I always had a plan. Great players always have a plan. That's why LeBron James, Michael Jordan, you look at guys like that, Kobe Bryant, those guys are so great because they always have a plan. When you have a plan, you stay with your plan. You don't move away from your plan. That's the ability that we grow inside of ourselves and learn how to do, and we keep it for ourselves. It's a hidden place that we understand how to do what we need to do to excel, to be well. So the challenge is great anytime you're playing, but there's no fear factor when you become great at what you do. And outside a part of your life is like who you are. Why do you struggle so much? I'm quite sure everybody was questioning that. This guy is amazing, but why is he struggling so much? Well, it's because the pain is real. Pain is deep. And if we never deal with pain, it will always stay there. It will never leave. I don't care who you are and what you're trying to achieve. If there's pain there, you can only cover it up so much. I've been blessed and been privileged to live a life that I live, but the pain was always there, and I could never escape from that until I started dealing with that. And I had to deal with that head on to be able to get well. And once I got to the place of dealing with it, which is the hardest part for anybody, there's a great relief in that. And then you become well, you become whole, you become a different person, and you become free inside. Freedom is everything that we all strive for and that we want on the inside. Like I said, we could dress ourselves up and look good and say I'm well, but are you really well?
Yeah, and there's such a huge part of what you're saying, because there's this belief that if we have pain on the inside, that wealth or fame or likes or shares or whatever is the social currency of the moment will drown it out. But it's a temporary mass. So what happens is when we get the cheers or we get the likes or we get the comments or whatever it is that we're looking for, in the moment, it's the white noise that doesn't allow us to heal and feel the pain. But as soon as the likes are gone, or as soon as you get back from the crowd, that pain is like, here I am, old friend, still here.
It never goes. It never goes away. We cover it up well, and so many celebrities are great at it because we have this image that we have to live by, and we have to cover it up that way. Okay, I'm 6'6", so I shouldn't have pain. There shouldn't be nothing wrong with me. I'm a great baseball player, and you're winning games and you're winning championships, so you're making money, so you shouldn't have any pain. And the pain starts from childhood somewhere. People are afflicted, and it's hard to shake because you believe it as you grow up. And when you grow up in dysfunction situations, it stays with you until you get healed. There has to be a healing process. And if you never go through the healing process, you can never be well. And a lot of times people think money should make you well. No, money just buy you stuff and make you feel good. And when you buy something new, you buy a new car, you feel good about it. Then all of a sudden the car is old. It's not gonna save you on the inside of how you're really feeling. So those are things that I had to learn to overcome. Those are things that I had to learn to deal with. And people go into deep depressions and they get sad because they lose their status. And eventually in life, you'll lose your status. You'll no longer be Darryl Strawberry, the baseball player. Then who are you?
Right. So
that's, go ahead.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. Now, you said something which really struck me a few moments ago, that when you were on the on-deck circle going up to bat, you had a game plan in your mind. You had this vision and this plan, and that's what helped you get into that greatness. When you look at the challenge or the struggle with addiction, one might say, well, how come, Darryl, you just don't apply that same strategy to your addiction? Like, see yourself in that way. What is that differential between the struggle with addiction and that ability to create that game plan for yourself that works so well in sports?
Well, because baseball never hurt me. And I was never hurt behind baseball. I was hurt behind life and who am I? And that's a big difference of dealing with what's really going on the inside. There's a big difference going on the inside of a person and a person's ability to succeed, because baseball was fun, but life wasn't fun. And I think a lot of times people they underestimate life and how fun it really is just because you're successful. But if you still have this in your gut, that I'm nothing, you believe it no matter what, no matter how great you become, no matter how many movies you make, no matter how many trophies you receive. If I've never dealt with the inner man and that part of me, it sticks with me. It's a separate part of how can you enter into life when you're hurting, and how can you enter into greatness because you're having fun? You can enter into greatness. So it's a big difference between what's fun and what's not fun. The reality of life for me was not fun. When I had to look back at things, I had to look at the fact that my father never saw me play Little League. He never gave me a hug. He never told me, I love you. I'm proud of you. My mom did. Mom was something else. They're always there for you. But a boy needs a male figure in his life to encourage him about what he's trying to accomplish. And when I was growing up, I didn't have that. And people say, well, you could just get over that. No, you can't get over that because you never experienced that. You have to experience it for yourself to know what it was like playing Little League baseball and running off the field. You never had a dad there. So it was very challenging. So those are the ways I separated those things. And that's the same thing. People think, well, can't you just get over addiction? Well, addiction has come and it has altered my mind. Anything that alters your mind is going to change your mind around. And I think people don't understand that. Once your mind has been changed, it's been changed from I don't have to deal with the pain. I can escape from the pain because this escapes me from the real reality of what has happened to me and what I've suffered as a kid. And I could just use drugs or something like that or drink to relieve me from not having to feel that. Because once you take it away, I still got to feel it. And it's not going anywhere. So every time I used drugs, every time I got drunk, it altered my mind. It took me away from that feeling that was inside of that pain.
So philosophically speaking, and this is it's a hard question to answer, but I'm curious if you've thought of it. Let's assume history rewrote itself and your father wasn't the abusive character that he was. Do you think you still make it to the professional league?
Yeah, I think so, because I had an eye of where I started looking at baseball, and it kind of just pulled me in that I love it. And it's just like anything someone decides to do. Once your eyes see it and you believe it, nobody can take it away from you. And it's just about going out and allowing your ability to take place and that what you're trying to achieve. And that's what I did. I took my ability and I put it into baseball. I mean, I could have played basketball. I could have played football.
And your son played professional basketball. Is that right?
Yes, my son did. He went to University of Maryland and he played professional basketball. He played with the Suns his first year after college, and he went overseas and been playing overseas in the European League. So both of my boys had played basketball. And my youngest son just graduated from Mercer, Macon, Georgia. Mercer University, played 4 years of basketball too. So pretty cool to watch him grow up.
So it's got to be great to be able to kind of break that legacy with your own kids and kind of be that father that you never had.
It's been amazing. It's been amazing to be the dad, because I cried and made a point to myself that I would never touch my kids. I would never put my hands on them because of the scars that it left me with. And I never did. The discipline was totally different. I would talk to them, but I would never put my hands, because I knew what would happen had I put my hands on them, just like my dad did to me. They would reject me, and they would not want to be a part, because beatings leave scars on people forever until they get healed from them. And like I said before, it's a long process to be able to get healed. And because you think to yourself, and I used to think to myself, why doesn't he love me? What did I do? I was just a kid. A kid makes mistakes. That's part of life. Shouldn't you have a conversation, sit down with your kids and talk about things? So I just made a point that I would do that with my kids. I would sit down and talk to them and never leave them affected like that, because it would carry out in their life, and it probably lead them down the wrong road. And I've been very blessed. I have 6 kids, and me and Tracy, with my wife, we have 9, and my kids are not affected like I was. So I'm grateful for that.
It's interesting because you've been able to kind of change the course and the legacy of the Strawberry family, which is beautiful. But at some point, you had to decide you were going to change the legacy for yourself, right? And you were suspended 3 times by the MLB for substance abuse. So obviously, the first time it happened, this path that you're on now didn't occur, and the second time it didn't occur. What was it that allowed you to take a very good look in the mirror and start the beginning processes of changing or being more honest with yourself about what was happening?
Well, you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to take a hard look at yourself, but you have to deal with your stuff, because in life, Arel, everybody's got some junk in their trunk, and it's a matter of how we deal with it. We all got something, and we just have to come to a place and we have to deal with it. And mine's, I think it's a saying that I always say, about help people that's stuck in the midst of addiction. It's about people helping people. Now, it was about other people helping me. And it was about my wife, Tracy, who came into my life. And she said something that I never experienced. Most people had told me, you got to do this and do that. And I've heard the same thing over and over. And she said, for you to ever get well and become a man, you're going to have to take off that baseball uniform. I was like, whoa. I was taken back, because I never heard anybody tell me that. She was like, you got to take that uniform off. You have the wrong identity. You're identifying yourself That's Darryl Strawberry, the Major League Baseball player. And you can never become a man until you take that uniform off and deal and take responsibility for your actions.
And was that the moment that you said, oh?
I did. I was like, wow. Because you find celebrities and athletes and stuff, they identify themselves in what they do and not who they are. You know, that's touched me because I was identifying myself in what I did. Darryl Strawberry, 4-time World Series champ, 8-time All-Star. You know, that's who I am. People gonna always love me, and it still never made me a man. It still made me a baseball player. I was still walking around being a baseball player, even though I wasn't playing anymore. There I was, former baseball player, and you can never enter into the purpose of your life and why you created if you never become a man. We can all say I'm a man because I achieved all these great things, but who are you? Who are you really? You know, and that's something I always wanted to come to a place and find out who am I really and what's the purpose for me being here? Because we all have a purpose to step on this earth to do something, and it's not about just being successful. We have a purpose to be able to go back and do something, help somebody else, and share life with other people and other people who have struggles. And when we find out that, then you get the greatest reward inside. That now I'm really living a life for real. I lived in the fantasy for so long, playing Major League Baseball and the cheers and the success and everything. But now today, you know, becoming a man, you know, I'm really into the life of my creation, of doing something that will leave a great legacy here. Not a legacy of baseball, but a legacy of making a difference in other people's lives.
So take me to, if you could, in your mind, I would love for you to go back to that moment when you had this epiphany of, you know, baseball is what I did, but it's not who I am, and I need to start focusing on who I am, which begins the road of recovery. What are those first couple of days like when you're saying, I'm going to give up the alcohol and give up the drugs or whatever? Some of our addictions may be the food. It may be the cake or the gummy bears that we need to get through the day, the coffee. When you're going through the addiction, I understand there's physical challenges, of course, but if you can take me more through that mental process of what is the mind, what is going through, and then when you're hitting that wall that's going to cause you to backslide, how do you make sure you don't backslide in those crucial moments?
Well, the mental part of it is very, very challenging. And then you have to come to a place, like the first couple of days, is very challenging to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to be this way anymore. And how do I do that? Well, I have to start getting up. I have to start working on myself, and I have to start doing things in a different way. I can't do things the same way. That's the real challenge of one who is just starting.
What's an example of what you did that was different?
Well, the example of what I did was, first I had to get out of the bed, because most of the time, you know, when you in addiction, you lay in depression, and you have to get up and you have to start new things. You got to work out. You got to find something outside of that. What are you doing with yourself from day to day? And I think for me, what it was, I had to get up, and I had to face the challenge of my responsibilities of my past behaviors that left me crippled. Okay, so there's a lot of things that you don't take care of when you're in the midst of an empty life. And for me, Arel, it was like I didn't have a driver's license. I was $3 million in debt, so I had to take real responsibility. I had to start cleaning up the past, the records of the past, and that's what I started finally facing. If you don't face those things, they're not going anywhere. Let's put it like this. And it's not until you have to face those things you have to start dealing with them. So I had to get up. I had to start calling people that owed money to. I had to take responsibility of them, start making deals and start cutting deals, and started walking in that direction. And I did. You know, my wife showed me that this is what you have to do. If you're going to have to take responsibility for these things, they're going to be hard. And that really started making me focus on my life more than anything than drinking and using, because I had this mess. I had this stack over here was a mess. So how do I deal with it? Nobody else is going to deal with it. The creditors are not going to go away. I have to call them personally and tell them my situation, tell them where I'm at. Can I work these things out and start working things out? And that's what I started doing. Got into action.
So let me say this: you're in this process of you've made millions of dollars. You get into $3 million into debt, and you have to get out of it. There has to be a level of shame that might drive one deeper into the abyss of addiction or depression during this phase. How do you recommend when that shame starts kicking in? Like, oh, I'm Darryl Strawberry. I'm supposed to be this big baller, and people are going to see me differently, and not letting that slide you back.
I had to deal with it. I started dealing with it. I started facing the demons, of my life. And if you don't face them, they're just going to get bigger, So I had to actually started dealing with it. I had, like I said before, I had to get into the action of it, because we could sit there and I could have stayed in the shame, because there was a lot of shame and there was a lot of guilt from myself of what I had done to my life. But nobody else was going to clean it up but me, and I had to step up to the plate. It was just like stepping up in a ball game to the plate. I was confident then. I had to be confident in my life that I would step up to the plate. And I think the most important thing that I really, really, really learned, because I was good at baseball. And how did I get good at baseball? I had to bring discipline in. So to get good at life, you got to bring discipline in too. And I remember hearing that kept hearing it in my head. Remember how good you was in baseball? You were so disciplined. You worked out by yourself. You trained by yourself. You didn't need nobody. So what I started doing is I started being the same way in my life. I started being disciplined in my life. I started training myself. I cut off people. I started going in a different direction. I started taking responsibility step by step. It wasn't overnight. There was a pile of stuff there, but I started dealing with it, and I started dealing with it head on. And that's how I started getting over the shame. I think people never get past the shame because they don't deal with things. And if you don't deal with things, you don't get well.
Now, what if I'm someone who's listening to this right now and I'm struggling with my own addiction, whatever it may be, and I may discount your journey different than mine, because I can say, well, you had that strength, Darryl. You had that discipline. You could look into your life and go, you're a champion. I'm just a average Joe or an average Jane, and I'm hopeless because I don't have that proof that you have. What do you say to someone like that?
The thing about it is, people, we're all the same. We're all created the same. We're all created for a great purpose. It's just a matter of, do I rise up and get into the purpose of my life? Because everybody has a gift in their life to do something. But if I don't get up and do it, and I don't become a person clean on the inside, all I got to do is become clean on the inside. Okay, what I mean by that, Arel, is I don't have to be a manipulator anymore. I don't have to be a liar no more. I don't have to be this. I don't have to be that. And if we get up and get into action and start being different each day, before you know it, I've changed, because I got motivated and I got moving. It doesn't mean everybody has strength inside of us. We all have strength inside of us. We can lay down and just say, pour me, and keep pouring me another drink. And that's the old saying of what people do in life, and saying, my life wasn't fair, even though I achieved all these things, but then I hit this real hard part of my life, and I could have stayed there and said, well, this life isn't fair. What happened to me? Because this happened to me, and I never got up and done something about it. And I decided I needed to get up and do something about my past behavior and who I was, and I needed to take responsibility and get into some serious action and stop looking at other people. Because other people are not my problem. I'm a problem. And when I deal with my problem, I can be an overcomer. I didn't want to sit here and say to myself that I'm a victim, because we can all say we're a victim of society. No, I'm not a victim. I'm an overcomer. I decided to be an overcomer of the things that occurred in my life. And I decided that I needed to just, move forward and be a better person. Learn to be a man, learn to be a husband, learn to be a father. Things that I didn't see growing up, I needed to work on those to become who I am today.
I love that I'm not a victim, I'm an overcomer, which is, it's a powerful mantra, honestly. Like if you're listening to this podcast and if all you get from Darryl Strawberry is the mantra of I'm not a victim, I'm an overcomer, that's going to push you through so much. And, for you, Darryl, I'm kind of hearing from you that there was that moment that you were able to acknowledge that you had a problem and you got to get out of bed and you got to do all these things. But what if I'm someone who has someone I love who's an addict who doesn't believe they have a problem? Can you help that person? Is admitting that you have a problem really the first step in the solution? What can one do in that scenario?
Well, I tell people most of the time that has someone that's struggling with addiction is to always love them, but just don't tolerate them. You don't have to tolerate the mess and the behavior that comes with it. And sometimes you have to remove yourself away from the situation before it can get better. And that's an unfortunate way to put it, but it's the reality of what you're dealing with. Because one with an addiction problem has a tendency of going through people like a tornado, because that's what I did. I went through people like a tornado because they just allowed me to get away with stuff. And when you allow a person to get away with stuff, they're going to continue to be that way. And it's not until you remove yourself from the situation. Always love them. I'm going to care from you. I'm going to care for you, but I'm going to care for you from a distance away. You can't come around here. I'm not going to deal with you. I'm not going to have this in my house. And if it's a husband, wife, it has to be the same way until that person decides that they really need to go somewhere and do some real work on themselves and come to a place of humility and learn to walk in humility.
So I find that moment has to be the most difficult for the person in love with someone or loves someone who is an addict, because I imagine if someone comes to you and says, hey, I just please give me a place to stay. Please don't let me out on the street. But they're still doing addict behavior that one might feel kicking them out hurts them.
Well, no, they've seen that behavior for a long time. It's not going to change. I can tell you that right now, because I didn't change when, I was that way too. And I always said that, I will be different. I'll do things different. But, I never could do anything different until I, dealt with myself on the inside. Like I said before, we could look great on the outside and we could sound good, but have you really dealt with the real problems on the inside? So they have to learn. It's part of helping them to recover, or maybe they not. Will recover. I mean, sometimes you have to allow someone to hit their real bottom for them to be able to look up and say, "I don't want to live like this anymore," and putting them out. I remember me and Tracy when we were together, and she was pulling me out of dope houses 15 years ago, and I was shooting dope, smoking crack, and she was pulling me out, and she's just like, I'm done with this. And she just cut me off. She just dropped me. And from that point of being dropped and telling me you need to take that uniform off, and that's when I started looking at myself. And that's when I went back to my sister's house and stayed with her 3 kids in a 2-bedroom apartment, the great Darryl Strawberry, 8-time All-Star, 4-time World Series champ, stand with a sister with nothing. So I had to take a real look at myself at this bottom. And once I took a look at myself at that bottom, I stayed with my sister for 6 months, stopped drugs, sex, everything, got myself together, and I started moving down the right road. That's, sometimes has to happen. It happened to me. It happened to most people. If it never happens to a person and we keep enabling them and allowing them to stay and come back in and keep doing the same thing, then that's a shame on us. We're enabling them. We're never going to allow them to hit that bottom and get well. So I think that's how you have to look at things. That's how things had to happen for me, and sometimes that's how things have to happen. Because if it doesn't happen, in all reality, that person might continue to be the same way, and that person might end up going on to die because they never stepped out to deal with what's really wrong with them.
And I keep hearing this theme, this kind of unifying thread of we have to face our pain and we have to face the struggles that are within us, the demons that are within us, so that we can become a man or become a woman. In your case, I hear through your story that a lot of that pain kind of germinated from your relationship with your father. Did you address your father during this process? Is it something that you did without him in it? What role did he play in your recovery process?
He didn't really play a major role, but he played a role in my life of healing. After I changed my life and became a ordained minister and started walking in faith, and there I was faced with looking at him, and there I was questioned, by God Himself of how dare I not forgive him, and God had forgiven me. And I went to my father and asked my father to forgive me for keeping him out of my life, because two wrongs don't make a right. And I don't know his story and what his life was like growing up, but obviously it wasn't good because he was the only child and he was affected deeply. So I realized that I needed to go back and apologize and ask my father for forgiveness. About 5 years ago, I think it was, something like that. And it was just like, I just laid there and he was in the hospital and I just asked him to forgive me and I just cried and I just lost it. And, I came out of there healed. Yeah, after such a long, painful life and everything, broken life, there was a great healing, between me and him that happened, in my life. And that's all I really ever wanted. I just wanted to be healed. I mean, my hatred and my deep hatred for him left me so broken and scarred inside. And when I finally did it, there was a relief and there was a healing that came across. And because I went to him, not him coming to me, and asking him to, forgive me for keeping him out of my life, my career and everything. It was just a great moment, and it was something that I always wanted to experience, and I got a chance to experience it. And my father ended up, being well, just as well as I was, and he ended up passing away about 3 months ago. So it was a good feeling. It was a good way to come to a place where I no longer had to carry that weight of him being this abusive father and what he did in my life.
Do you think that if that conversation would have happened much, much earlier in your career, do you think that would have stopped that onslaught of addiction, or do you think that addiction was just going to be a part of the process?
No, I think it would have stopped that part of addiction in my life, because addiction was because of the hurt. The pain and hurt is real. It's real deep inside of a person. And what are you hurting for? What are you hurting about? And I'm hurting over a lost relationship that I never had as a kid, and I'm hurting over the fact that the rejection, the beatings were just unbearable at the time as a kid, and truly didn't understand it. But it was a part of my life. I had to lay across the bed and take my shirt off and be beat with an extension cord. So that was something I had to deal with. I had to live with. I could replay the tape over and over so many different times. And for what? And just being a kid, and you act a kid, something happens, you don't understand that at that time. So I think had I got a chance, to mend my relationship earlier, I could have probably went on to be a greater baseball player, and been relieved from some of my pain. But I found it after baseball, after life. I guess that's the way it's supposed to happen for me. But I would encourage people, if you're in the midst of that right now, I would encourage you to go there and heal that relationship so you can get healed from it, so you don't have to destroy your life, because you will destroy your life. People will destroy their life because of not forgiving someone.
And our ego is so strong. And I wonder for you, when you were at the height, you're winning championship after championship, you got your patented high kick when you're hitting the ball and everyone is showering you with glory and all that stuff. In that moment, though the addiction was present, were you aware that pain between you and your father existed? Or did that realization only happen because of that rock bottom and you had to examine your life?
I was always aware of the pain, my relationship with my father. When I was at the height and winning and being successful. Um, I could always celebrate it with my mom, but I didn't have a dad to celebrate it with. And I saw other players who had fathers in their life that was around and they could celebrate it with. And it was kind of hard to be able to see that and not be able to do that. So that the pain existed, throughout the time of my career. I guess I had to hit the rock bottom to be able to actually look up and see that I needed to really find a healing place in my life, because baseball was over. So what do you do now? See, I could hide in baseball, but what do you do after? And most of us hide in our careers and our success, but what do you do after when it's over? Okay, if you never go to the place and you never deal with it to get well, then you're going to be the same. See, because what happened in my life is I ended up being rescued, redeemed, and restored. So I ended up being rescued and redeemed and restored to wholeness, after my days. So that's what led me to my father, to be able to go to him and say, I'm sorry, because now my life has been changed from the inside to the outside. Before I was the outside to the inside. The inside was never good. The outside was great. But now if the inside was great, now the outside needed to get into action and go ahead and move forward. And what I needed to move with my father and bring this process that we needed to come together and move on and move forward in life. And so many people never go to that place. They stay in the same place and they wonder why they never get well. And I would just encourage people to go there. I mean, because I know it's a lot of people and a lot of listeners probably listen and say, I got a broken relationship and I got with mom, dad, a brother, sister. You need to go back and mend that relationship so it can heal you, so it can free you. See, what we don't understand, Arel, we don't understand. Forgiveness wasn't for him. Forgiveness was for me.
Mm. Now, I keep hearing the big takeaway that I'm hearing from your message here is that idea of the internal pain, that the addiction, it stems from this brokenness, this pain, and we have to look into this pain. And part of that healing process is that forgiveness of the person or that relationship that causes pain. What would happen if, you went to your father and you said, hey, Dad, I please forgive me from not allowing you to be in my life. And what if he just responded like a jerk? What if he just responded like that moment to give you healing? Is there still a way to push past that pain if the other person isn't going to be able to validate that pain or to accept that forgiveness?
Yes, it is. Because you've done your part. There's a part that we all play in everything. And if I never do my part, I wouldn't have never got free. See, I had carried that for years because I had never done my part. I looked at him for what he had done instead of saying, here, I'm coming because of grace here.
Right. So it's more on, this is my job is
right.
to do that. Whatever
right.
happens after that, I've done my job.
You've done your job. That's what people are not walking freedom in, because they won't do their part. We all have a part to play in this life of living. And if we won't do our part, we don't understand it. It wasn't about what he did to me. It was about what I did to him to get free. Okay, because what he had done to me, I had already been set free from that. Okay, because I got well, I got healed. Okay, but now I had to go back and do my part. I had to go do my part of what I had to do. There was I had to release him. Okay, I'm no longer letting you have power over my life anymore. I'm releasing you because I'm forgiving you. There it is. I'm free. I walked out of that hospital with such a freedom that I could never imagine, that I wanted for a very long time. And it was because I was holding bitterness in my heart.
There is a huge level of kind of giving up of one's ego, Because the ego would be like, I ain't gonna ask this guy for forgiveness. He beat me. He did this to me. I'm not, if he asked me for forgiveness, then I'll forgive. But that keeps us in prison, right?
Right. It wasn't about him. It was about me. And I think a lot of times people think it's about the other person on the other side. No, it's about me. It's about me no longer giving you power over me, no longer holding this over my life anymore, so I can walk in such a freedom. And I think too many of us look at it the wrong way, and we think, well, he did this to me, she did this to me. Yeah, they did, but I don't know why he did it to me. But I understand that I've been set free from it, and I need to complete this for myself. Okay, because if I don't complete it for myself, I'm still gonna have this bitterness or whatever it is inside of my heart. And if I have that in my heart, I'm really not free from the situation until I go in there and actually do what I need to do to walk away and say, I've done my part now. Now I'm free.
Now with your book, Don't Give Up on Me, that's out, that people can get, who is either dealing with addiction or they love someone who's dealing with addiction. If they were to get their hands on this book and read it, what do you believe would change or happen in their life because of this particular book?
Well, first of all, for the people that are not an addict or don't have a problem, have a loved one has a problem, if they read it, they're going to understand. Now you understand what happens in a person's life. Instead of sitting here and saying, well, why can't you stop? It's just not that simple. If you never get to the root of the problem, the trauma, the abuse, or something that's happened to them, you don't understand. But if you pick up the book and you read it, now you look at a guy that was a high-profile athlete, successful, and look what happened. Now we can start underlining some things. If someone is struggling with addiction, if they read it, now they'll be able to get set free, because now they'll start really realizing that I need to deal with my own pain and my own stuff instead of covering it up. Because see, drugs, using, it's just a cover up for what's really happening to you, and you're trying to escape from something that you never dealt with. And if you never go deep to deal with it, you can never get free. And most of us never get free because most of us have been rejected by so many different people. And you find most people that are in the midst of addiction don't have a father figure in their life and been rejected. Or if a father's there and the family's wealthy, the father's never home, never around, the mother's there, the kid end up lost in a group of new people because no one's paying attention. They feel lonely. Loneliness is real, and isolation is real, and abuse is real. And they're thinking we don't ever deal with it. It happened to me, then I can never get well. And that's for one that picks it up and start reading and start saying, wow, this guy was a great athlete, and look at the real hurt that he had in his life, that led him to feel like this. I know exactly what he feels like, because I feel like this too. So it can help them and encourage them to find their way.
The word addiction is so interesting because on the surface level, a lot of people may say, oh, but I don't know anyone dealing with cocaine or crack or alcohol. But there's some of us who, if we're very honest with ourselves, we have an addiction to food, to sugar, to gummies, to cakes, to cookies, to caffeine. When you look at the addiction and that concept of addiction, how do you think it transfers over into the world of food, and not alcohol, but maybe sugary drinks or cola or coffee? How does the world of addiction play into like the food we consume?
It's all the same. It's all the same. It plays across the board. Drugs just destroy you. Food will destroy you. And you wonder why you all of a sudden picked up so much weight, because you can't put it down. You're eating all the time. It's gambling addiction, pornography. It's just so many things that addiction grips people by the life. And they say, well, I'm not on drugs, but you sit at a gamble table and you take your whole check and you lose your whole check and you do it over and over, looking for a new result. And same thing with food. You keep eating and you're looking for a different result. Well, I got to lose weight, but I can't put food down. Well, you're looking for a different result, trying to do something different, but it's the insanity of it, and I think people don't understand that. And just like someone that gets addicted to porn, he sits there, he's home, got a family and everything, and don't know how he got addicted to it because you allowed yourself to get lured into it with your eyes into the computer and looking at something and you fantasize for it. It's powerful. Addiction is powerful. And it's very powerful in so many different ways. It goes all across the board, sugar or whatever it may be. You have to come to a place where you have to discipline yourself in all those areas of your life, because that's what happened to me. I had to get to a place of taking responsibility and discipline myself in all those areas. Because, see, we discipline ourselves in what we want to do. If we're going for a career, we know how to discipline ourselves to get up on time, be at work on time, and be there. That's discipline. But do we discipline ourselves in our life habits? And we all have them in some kind of way. And I had to learn to bring discipline in my life habits. And once I started doing that, I started having control over these situations in my life, and they stopped controlling me. At the time, they used to control me. Now I control them.
Now, the word discipline is such a, I early in my career, I heard the idea that discipline weighs ounces and regret weighs tons. I think it was Zig Ziglar who said that. And it always stuck with me because discipline in the short term feels like sacrifice, right? Waking up at 5 a.m. doesn't feel good. Eating, the salad and drinking the water doesn't feel good. So it's that momentary not feeling good, which leads to this long-term benefit. What advice would you give to someone who is saying, yo, Darryl, I'm just not disciplined. Like, I'm not going to wake up early. I'm not going to not eat this. Like, I work and I got to just go to the drive-thru and get the fried food, or, the drinks it eases my nerves. How does one choose a life of discipline?
Well, it eases your nerves. To be able to do all that. That's why you don't get well. It all boils down to, and I had to look at my life. It all boils down to, do you want to be well? And getting well is a big discipline factor in all our lives. Okay, for me to be great at what I was doing, I had to be disciplined at it. If I wasn't, I wouldn't have never been that great baseball player like I was. And I know that. And it's the same thing with our life. It's the exact same thing. If I'm not disciplined to change my habits of food, if I'm not disciplined to change my habits of the people I'm hanging with, if you're in the midst of addiction, guess what? You're not gonna get well. You're not gonna get well. You can say you're gonna get well. If I continue to say, well, I'm gonna get well, I'm gonna be overcoming from addiction, but I'm gonna get well. But I'm still be going over to the drug house to see friends just to say hi. Hello, you're not gonna get well. Okay, you may go over there once or twice and not do it. You go over there that third time and everybody's doing it. You're gonna be finding yourself craving for it in the middle of it. It's the same thing when I'm going through that fast food place. If I'm saying I want to be well, if I'm driving through that drive-through, I'm not going to get well that way.
What happens when that discipline, and I think, because I think of me, so I know that I struggle with my sugar consumption. I'm someone who, I just love sweets, and I've had to eliminate them and go for 30 days. I'm not going to eat them and prove to myself that I'm in control. But there's a part of me, if I can be very honest, that thinks a life without sweets is not a sweet life. What am I going to do at birthdays? What am I going to do, to celebrate something? The sweets, the sugar, it seems like such a joyous part of life. But if I just have it in moderation, it's fine. How does one deal with that?
But you have to understand too, Arel, if you can't have it in moderation, then you can't touch it. It's a big difference. You said that if I can have it in moderation, most of the time, all the time, if we're addicted to something in moderation, don't means nothing. I mean, that's the same way addicts think. Well, if I could just do drugs in moderation, I used to think that way. There was no moderation. I would think, well, I'm just going to go and party for one day. I would go out and I'd be gone for 5 days. So that has to be eliminated completely from you, and that's where your real discipline, your real challenge. You know what it boils down to? It boils down to, can you starve your flesh? Can you starve? You have to starve your flesh. Your flesh is going to crave for it, and that's when, like with the drug addict, when I was going through it, the body, the flesh is always going to crave for it. The flesh craves for all kind of things. And can I starve it? Can I not put it in my flesh? And can I tell my flesh, no, you can't have it? And that's how I started to learn to walk away. I said, I'm no longer on there, flesh. And I started removing my flesh. Because if you keep your flesh in the way, it's going to always go there. I don't.
If you think about it, addiction is all, whether it's pornography, whether it's food, whether it's drugs, it's all an addiction of the flesh.
It's all addiction of the flesh. Is can I get to a place? See, can I get to a place of start starving my flesh? And yeah, it's hard at the beginning, but once you get used to it, brother, now you're free. Now you're walking on the freedom side. I no longer have the desires. People are like, do you have desires? I said, no, I no longer have desires. But they say, well, why don't you have desires to use and hang out and stuff? Because I've changed my lifestyle. I don't hang out. I don't go to clubs. I don't drink. I don't do these kind of things anymore because I've learned to starve my flesh from all of that. See, now I have victory over all that, because why? Because I disciplined my life in that. If I kept hanging around and kept believing that I could just keep doing it and here, a little bit here and a little bit there, okay, I'm never going to have victory over it. I wanted victory over things. And I'm no different than anybody else. If you want victory over things, you can get victory over things. Yeah,
it's profound. It's ridiculously profound what you just said. And that idea that victory comes from saying, can I starve this addiction? Can I get there? And then you get into a new way of living, a new way of being that's totally different than you thought was possible.
Right. Because you know what happens is we as people, we look for more of the instant gratification fix instead of the challenge. See, when we get into the challenge of life and the challenge of things that are no good for us, okay, now we're starting to really work on ourselves. Now we're going to really conquer some things, because that's when I started to conquer things in my life, when I started really dealing with those great challenges of my life. If I don't never deal with them and say, oh, it's going to be okay, if I just keep doing this, keep doing it. No, it's not. It's never going to get well. And, but most people, they used to talk about my life and who I was and what I used to be and everything, but they don't, the media and stuff like that. But today they don't talk about how well I am and what I do to make a difference. They want to talk. They always want to talk about your failures, but they don't want to talk about you when you succeed in life. So you're going to always deal with that. And how do you handle that? You just keep moving, because now I face my own demons, and I started dealing with my own demons, because we all have them in some kind of way, big, small, or whatever they are. We have them, and it's not until we face them, it's not until we deal with them, it's not until we starve them. When we starve them, they die.
So, an hour goes by so quickly. I have so many more questions, and we're coming to the end here. But I know that you do motivational speaking now. You're doing a lot to give back. You have a recovery center. Tell folks, where are you spending most of your time now? You're an ordained minister. Like, give us all of what you're doing now and your success, and also how people can connect to you if they want to find out more.
Well, I travel the country quite a bit. I mean, last year I think I was on the road for about 236 days. Different locations. Either in churches across America for the weekend preaching, or either going to speak on recovery. I just was in Staten Island yesterday. I spoke at a big luncheon, breakfast luncheon yesterday, YMCA of addiction. I speak at a lot of addiction events to encourage those that are struggling and trying to overcome, and just making sure that they understand that their life matters no matter what. No matter what they've been through, no matter what someone has said, people's lives are important. We all come from somewhere, and we don't all have a silver spoon in our mouth. Where we come from a life and we think, oh, that's the life. I've been there. It's not the life. It's just a life. Life is short, and we need to always remember people are important. Regardless of who you are. And I try to deliver that and convey that message to people, because I love people, and my life been spared. I've been through a lot. through addiction and through cancer, lost my left kidney in my second surgery. So I'm a living miracle. I always tell people, if you've never seen a miracle, you're looking at one. And if I could become a miracle, you could become a miracle. And we need to make sure we always give that hope back. And, our ministry and our treatment and what we do to help people is important to me. I have an urgency to get up every day and try to make a difference to help people. I don't know how much time I have left here on earth, but I know one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the race strong, and I'm going to finish the race helping others, because it was given to me that way. And see, with my wife and my friends and all those people that were around me, that circled around me when I was hurting and broken, they helped me. So it's something that I believe it's important to always go and give back to those that are struggling with life, whatever life issues you're struggling with. It doesn't matter what it is, whatever addiction you have, you could be an overcomer. If I keep giving into it, then that's my flesh operating. But if I operate and let my flesh die, I'm operating in my spirit. And my spirit keeps me alive. It keeps me going, and it keeps me away from things.
Mm. I got to ask you one more question. You got time for one more question for me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, this has just been so insightful in so many ways for me. I can imagine with your travels and your speaking and all the work that you do, you get asked certain questions. Is there a question that you wish you would get asked more? Or is there a topic you wish would get brought up more that for whatever reason just doesn't come to the light? And if there is one that you can think of, what is it, and could you answer it for us?
Yes, that's a good question, Arel. Nobody ever asked, most people ask me all these other questions about baseball and me doing well, but how did you get there? Faith. Through my faith, through my faith, I was a person that was always searching for, the purpose of my life, and I finally got it through my faith and receiving it for real. Because people think because you become a minister, now you're a Bible thumper. No, I'm not a Bible thumper. I'm a believer of what faith is all about. And faith is hope that is not seen. People look for it to, because they can't see it. We're a generation of people, if I can't see it, I don't believe it. And it's something that I operate in every day, that I practice every day, that I live every day, and how I walk it out. I don't walk around boasting about it or talking about it. I just live a different way. Why? Because my faith has changed me. It has brought me into purpose, and it's brought me into wholeness, and it's brought me into peace that surpasses all understanding. And I'm able to live that way at such a high level, and it's so good. I think so many people don't understand how good it really is, and I always try to challenge people is to try your faith, try believing, not in yourself, but try believing in God and walking in faith, and you'll see a different person. Because I want to be a different person. I didn't want to be the person I was when I was a baseball player. I didn't want to talk like I was when I was a baseball player. So what did that mean? I changed who I was. I starved my flesh in my addiction. I starved my flesh in the womanizing. I starved my flesh in lying. I starved my flesh into talking with foul language. All these things that I started operating now.
So now let me ask you this: who is Darryl Strawberry?
I am a true man of faith who loves God first, who loves my wife second, and who loves my kids third. In that order of my life, if I have that order of my life intact, I have everything together.
Darryl Strawberry, you have blown my mind. You have just, dude, I cannot, on so many personal childhood hero, on man to man, on God and faith believer. Everything that you're talking about is talking so much to my soul, and I hope everyone listening, you get that addiction shows up in so many different ways, and if you really want to understand what is happening with it and how to deal with it and overcome it, please go pick up the book, Don't Give Up on Me, Shedding Light on Addiction with Darryl Strawberry. It's an incredible book, but I have to tell you this for everyone listening, as I say on every single episode, the information that Darryl Strawberry just shared with you is not going to change your life at all. The implementation of this information will absolutely change your life for the better. And I think you learned incredible strategies here. And we're going to have links to the book, links for how, if you want to connect with Darryl, how to do so. I'm going to put that picture of me when I was a kid, super hyped about my Darryl Strawberry pro in the link. You're going to have it all there. Darryl, any last words you want to say before I let you go today, brother?
Yes, I would just want to say thank you for having me. It's a great opportunity to really share hope to others that are struggling, because we all have some type of struggles. And you can link to us, findingyourway.com/Art of Likability.
Perfect. All right. So check out that link. You're going to see all of it in the description on our website and on the podcast. It's amazing. Darryl, I'm going to give you a virtual high five. Send you a big old high five, brother. You
right,
are
man.
awesome.
Thank you, Arel. Appreciate it. High five back to you, brother. Thanks for the time, man.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast, The Art of Likability, and reach out with any questions you have. Until next time, remember, my friend, you are awesome.